accidents such as this, although rare, could happen at any time while you were serving on any ship. If an unexpected event like this does happen, crew members should always be at the ready and know what is expected of them. Drills are a mandatory part of shipboard life. They should help build teamwork and confidence. But eyewitness reports from port state authorities have discovered that all too often crew members are unfamiliar, hesitant, unconcerned, or use poor techniques when forced into this kind of situation. That's why holding effective drills is so important. If drills are carried out realistically, the knowledge obtained will enable crew members to handle real situations promptly and ensure a positive outcome.
Okay, I can see the casualty down there.
Okay, found the casualty to the right.
Okay. Hello, can you hear me? Case check.
Crew members should remember that holding effective drills is not just a task undertaken to conform to regulations. Effective drills are designed to save lives.
Coming out, what's his name?
Okay, could you just take him round to the first aid crew out on the port side?
Of course, simulating real situations to obtain knowledge is difficult and can be dangerous. But these trainees are obtaining first-hand knowledge before setting out to sea. A drill is a way of testing your knowledge. A review of that test will indicate any areas for further training.
Fire has continued to burn all day. A column of smoke rising from a consignment of hazardous chemicals which ignited at the moment of impact.
With the number of news stories of accidents involving vessels, it has become evident that drills have not always been effective. Crews were not responding quickly enough. They used poor techniques, and they lacked the knowledge and understanding of their role in a real-life incident.
The moment passengers assembled on the deck of the cruise liner, preparing for an emergency evacuation.
But not all stories end in tragedy. Because of a fire on this ship, the passengers were swiftly and efficiently put to sea in the lifeboats with no reported casualties. Although the ship was not full, nonetheless, the crew responded correctly and everyone was safe. To make sure that ships are performing drills effectively, the port state authorities can board a vessel at any time and ask them to carry out a drill. On many occasions, they have witnessed a number of bad practices.
In the years that I've been Port State Control Officer with the Coast Guard, I've noticed that generally the quality of the drills has probably increased. I think that's due to not only the international agreements being more recognized by the different countries, but also the fact that the Port State Control exams in the US and in the world are now becoming something that every ship has to face. The differences vary widely from ship to ship. I think generally the individual mariners are very familiar with the drills because it's a fact of life for them. But on a particular ship and with a particular crew and with different crew members, they may not be practicing on the individual pieces of equipment on a ship as much as they should. Some drills are very poor in that the crew really doesn't know what is expected of them, and it's very obvious that they don't really know what's going on the particular ship. Other ships are very excellent.
I find that due to time constraints, when crews are practicing their drills, they sometimes don't take it out to the degree to which they're familiar with all the equipment that they use. I would say a good half of the vessels that I personally have been on have had problems in one area or the other, and it's mainly a problem where they're not familiar with the equipment or the equipment hasn't been properly maintained.
Attention all crew, this is abandoned ship drill. This is abandoned ship drill.
When we go on board to do an inspection, we're not saying that the crew has to perform with any kind of military efficiency, and nor are we looking for military efficiency. We're just looking for a reasonable competency from the crew. That the crew be familiar with the pieces of equipment that's on that individual ship, they know where to find them, and that they can work together well.
Each crew member must participate in at least one abandoned ship drill and fire drill every month. Each will have an assigned duty when the alarm sounds.
All designated crew for the port libel station in their place, ready.
Roger, Chief, prepare the lifeboat for lowering.
Please prepare the lifeboat for the lowering.
If they've never lowered the boat, have them lower it all the way down to the bottom, bring it back up, and if there's anybody that's unfamiliar, have it do it again, and switch out people, because you may get somebody in an emergency that gets injured, and you need to have somebody else that knows that job. Don't just rely on like the chief engineer or the chief mate, or even like most of the time the second engineer, because he's the one that knows how to start the small boat engines. Everybody should know how to do that, and they should hold training to do that.
Release is attached, ready to lower on the boat.
Breach control team from port side libel station, port libel ready to lower. Go ahead, lower the port libel.
One of the things that happens time and time again is that the crew won't be familiar with a particular type of lifeboat. I've actually seen crews lower the lifeboat from the cradle position where the vessel should be boarded down to the deck, and with the lifeboat hanging 4 feet out from the side of the ship, try to jump into the opening on the lifeboat.
Please enter and sit in your places. Open the cover. Spread equally, some on the port side, some on the starboard side. Make fast your seat belt and report when everything is done.
One particular incident which happened recently was that a crew was not familiar with lowering the lifeboat with the auto release mechanism which is provided. The lifeboat stopped lowering about 25 feet above the water, and they pulled the release and dropped the boat 25 feet. Fortunately, both hooks released at the same time, and the boat came down level in the water. If a crew doesn't practice taking it through to its conclusion, then in real life, chances are they won't know what to expect. A pretty common problem that we see with lifeboat are that the central relief mechanism is not used and it's not exercised and just doesn't work. The crew members have to, once a boat is lowered, get out sledgehammers and commence to pounding on the mechanisms just to get them to release.
When they start to lower the boat, the equipment fails, and that's sometimes due to either them not doing the proper maintenance, or they're just painted over it to make it look good, and unfamiliarity. They muster, but they've never really lowered the boat before, and they don't really know how to do it.
We've had incidences and problems where the lifeboats were not even cradled properly, and when the crew goes to release them, just the stern of the lifeboat will swing out at 90 degrees from the vessel and drop. Obviously, in an emergency, they wouldn't be ready to abandon ship with that lifeboat. It's immediately evident when you go on board a ship if a crew knows that vessel and the particular piece of equipment on board. The crews who don't demonstrate knowledge of the particular equipment on the boat, usually that ship is in not as good condition overall.
If a vessel fails an inspection, we'll stop the drill. We'll wait a time after we've discussed the problems that we found with the drill with the master, chief mate, and the crew members involved, and then rerun the drill again. And if they fail it again, then we would stop it and start the detention procedures under the port state control. When you detain a vessel, you run into, if they're at a pier side and they can't leave, well, they're going to run up the wharfage fees for being moored there. And also, if they're put out at the anchorage, it's going to cause the vessel to be late for its next port of call, or it won't be able to offload this cargo or take on the new cargo so that it can leave. It causes the stevedores to have to reschedule, the pilots to reschedule. It's just a domino effect when the vessel doesn't pass any of the drills and it does get detained. It will cost the vessel money.
Realism is the key in making sure the drill is going to be effective. Drills involving lifeboats and life rafts should be as realistic as possible. Crew members, other than those who cannot be released from normal duties, should muster to their station wearing life jackets and the appropriate clothing. What if you had to put to sea in a lifeboat with no suitable clothing in cold weather, for instance? Your life could depend on it. Lifeboats should be launched at least once every 6 months, depending on the vessel. For safety reasons, this should be carried out in port, again depending on the lifeboat. Often problems arise, such as safety during the retrieval of the lifeboat. Treat this as part of the drill. Never raise the lifeboat with more than 3 people inside. Crew members, when joining a ship, undertake a familiarization program. This informs them of their muster station, their duties should an emergency arise, and familiarizes them with the equipment that vessel carries. Their life depends on knowing. Do you know how and which fire extinguisher to use? At each fire drill, at least one extinguisher should be discharged by a different crew member so that all the team gains experience. Over a period of time, the drill should be designed so that each crew member should at least have a go at working the equipment. They may be called upon to use it in an emergency situation, although they may not be assigned that duty. Each crew member should have been instructed, in turn, in the use of whatever equipment is needed for that eventuality. Here, the crew members are doing an enclosed space drill, where a fellow crew member is unconscious. Again, it is a realistic situation. They have to retrieve him as quickly as possible using the appropriate equipment.
One story where it becomes immediately evident if a crew member knows how to use the equipment is the use of breathing apparatus. Oftentimes, if you have the crew actually put on the breathing apparatus and try to breathe and go into a space, they'll be kind of fudging. But then when crew members showing up on scene, putting the air bottles on upside down, is oftentimes a key indicator that they don't know how to use the equipment.
Have you entered an enclosed space quickly and correctly?
All right, good job. Breathe up.
Knowing how could make the difference between life and death.
No problem. Hey, grab a hold of him. There you go. Excellent job.
even down to the simplest of instructions, the correct way to close doors, side scuttles, and other openings. Do you know how and when?
We found a live jacket for you, okay? If you'd allow me to help you put it on.
Thank you. That's very good.
Even drills such as this should be done in the correct manner. If you don't know the correct procedures, how can you instruct the passengers? Their lives and yours will depend on you knowing.
Okay, today we're going to make one fire drill.
Briefings such as this should be held before you embark on any drill or training exercise. They help you to understand what is expected of you, the reason the drill is being undertaken, and what you can and cannot do. This should also include going over the notes from the last drill and discussing how you could improve it.
We will find. So the last time we had a good drill, but we had making some mistake, and I would like.
Fire drills require understanding, as there are many types of fires requiring different means of extinguishing them.
What kind of the fire we have. So when we get the alarm, move to ring on our position.
By altering the type of fire and its location, or even the only means of entrance other than the usual entrance, you will have a fire party that is not only capable, but also knowledgeable in what actions to take.
And when you hear the sound of alarm somewhere after dinner, please proceed to your station. Thank you.
Add realism to the drill wherever possible. Fires don't necessarily happen during the working day. Authenticity will help the crew experience, as far as possible, a true life event. Drills should be carried out effectively, approaching emergency conditions. Adding realism to the drill will help to prepare the seaman in the event of a real-life emergency.
I think it's important for a chief officer to add realism to the drill, but only after the crew has a good basis of the operation of the types of equipment that's found on board their ship. I think drills should be held as in a real-life emergency. The crew is going to react in a real emergency as they do in practice. If the crew isn't allowed to use equipment as they would in real life, then they won't be familiar with it.
Not all ships are equipped with smoke machines to simulate a fire, as in this scene. Simply blacking out the crew member's mask will help to simulate the dense smoke effect. Good housekeeping on board is also vital. In one incident, a fire team trying to gain access to the fire were horrified to find several oil drums blocking their route. These had to be removed before the fire could be tackled. This example demonstrates that not only has the drill to be carried out properly, but so do the ship's normal operations. Fire drill exercises should be taken through to their conclusion. This should include the preparation of the emergency water pumps for action, the laying out of fire hoses. Wherever possible, water should be played through them, and that applies also to the hoses you don't normally use.
If a crew perhaps isn't as practiced as they could be, is a crew member will hook up one length of fire hose, and the fire scene will be 1.5 fire hose lengths away. He'll go charging into the fire only to come up short and fall onto his back. Something else that we've noticed time after time on fire drills is a crew just letting the fire hose get away from them. And then a nozzle thrashing around on deck, spraying water everywhere.
At all drills, an allocated trained person should observe the crew's actions, making notes to provide feedback at the debriefing. The observer should also check on the safety of the crew's actions. Accidents can sometimes occur during a drill, so it is important that someone outside the drill is at hand should difficulties arise. Drills themselves will of course help to limit these.
Okay, what is the problem now?
See, we have fire in steering gear room. We need from fire box.
Okay, we get a fire now in the emergency steering room. There's some rags burning.
Oftentimes it's very easy to do a walkthrough drill and to have the captain or the chief officer just talk about how things should happen. But when it comes to real life simulation, water on the deck, water in the hose, I think oftentimes the crew finds out that things are a lot different than maybe they were ready for. In an event of an emergency, a crew will do what they've practiced. If they've practiced nothing, the result is uncertain. If they've practiced something and haven't practiced it well, then perhaps they won't perform that well in the event of an actual emergency.
Do everything, because when you pretend and don't do it right, then when the actual drill happens or the actual emergency happens, you're not going to know how to do it.
The performance of the crew has a direct bearing on whether they're going to, in some cases, live or die.
To understand further how the actions of the crew are rated, debriefings help to interpret how well the exercise went. Those taking part in the exercise should be encouraged to give feedback.
Okay, I went on a left-hand search all the way to the end. The casualty was found right at the forward bulkhead.
This helps to understand the meaning of your own and your fellow crew members' actions.
Heat and smoke coming from the storeroom.
It's James 2. What I want you to do
Debriefings are an effective way of understanding the problems that may have occurred during the drill, and of helping to prevent them arising at the next drill, or more importantly, in a real emergency. They also help to understand the dangers